Hello, I am Commissioner Emma Darnell, Fulton County Commission District 6. Welcome to Mighty Six Conversations. As you know, Conversations is a monthly information communication program focusing on a sustainable community, economically strong, environmentally safe, with liberty, justice, and opportunity for all. Today's topic is the 2016 general election. Are you ready? Let's talk about it and where and when you can vote in the upcoming election. Thank you for joining us. I'll be back in a moment. Joining me today in the conversation is Richard Barron, who is the director of the Fulton County Department of Registration and Elections. Good afternoon, Mr. Barron.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so
here.
much for being with us.
You're welcome.
We know the department has worked very, very hard to get a lot of information out, and we're going to certainly let everybody know how to get more information today before we finish our conversation. But in District 6, there are some unique circumstances which I think would be very, very helpful if we can discuss today.
Okay.
You've given that information to the board, and of course you have also distributed that information to us, and we've gotten it out. But it's going to be very helpful, I think, if we sort of touch on those matters, in addition to any other area that you believe may be of interest to all voters, not just District 6 residents.
Okay.
But let's just talk about the size of the operation, Mr. Barron. This is not exactly the smallest operation we have here in the state, is it? We have about, 500,000 active voters?
Yeah, we're up to about 550,000 active voters now. With the inactives in there, it's about 740,000. And so all of those people are eligible to vote.
And the number of precincts?
We have 357 precincts. We have about 205 polling locations.
And you've brought on about how many poll workers and temporaries and so on?
We're going to have more than 2,200 poll workers. We have, in addition, another 220 plus early voting workers. And we have about 80 temporary staff in addition to the 20 people that are full-time on my staff.
Well, I guess you consider the size of the operation. That's not a large number, is it?
Yeah,
You need all of them.
we need all of them, yes.
I was very interested to hear in your presentation to the board that many of those workers are going to be working the lines themselves, not just inside. How is that going to go?
This is an exciting thing that's going to be on Election Day. We are going to have Samsung tablets, the vendor EasyVote that we use for check-in and some other things such as inventory. We're going to use that so that they can walk the lines and determine whether that voter is in the correct polling location, because we hope to reduce the number of provisional ballots that are issued. If a voter's required to vote in his or her own precinct on Election Day. If the voter is in the incorrect precinct, they can vote a provisional ballot. However, the entire ballot won't count. And so what we want to encourage voters to do is to vote in their precinct on Election Day.
And of course, the major problem that you're going after then, of course, is to reduce the long lines, right?
Right, and if you provisional voters also, it takes longer to process them, usually 3 to 4 times as long as a traditional voter. So it can lengthen the line if we have a lot of provisional voters in a precinct.
Well, that's going to help a lot to have workers working the lines to make sure that people are in the right location, because even if they're not, they can vote. Nevertheless, that they get the information they need, though. And you can begin to proceed with the provisional ballot, can't you?
Yes.
Rather than having them stand out there an hour or so and then find out after they get inside.
Right, and we're also going to track hourly the how long the lines are in the polling locations, so that, and we'll end up giving that information information later to the Bipartisan Policy Committee, which is works with the Presidential Commission.
Yes.
So we can track line length across the country and get better information on how to speed up the lines in polling locations.
It's also my understanding that it's the bipartisan commission that has identified these long lines nationally to be one of the greatest hindrances to voting.
Right.
Smoothly.
Yeah. A voter can become disenfranchised if they have to wait, you know, extensive lines on election day. I mean, my goal is to have, you know, 30 minutes or less. I think the Presidential Commission hopes to get it down to 20 minutes or less. But, you know, you have situations where if everyone shows up at once at a certain time, which usually is around 7 a.m., noon, at the end of the day, lines are going to happen. And I think early voting will help.
I was about to say that gets us to early voting.
Yeah, that'll help alleviate those lines.
We have a real early voting operation this year, don't we?
Yes, we've
24, I believe.
Yep, we've expanded our early voting operation. It was 6 in 2012. We have 24 permanent locations now, and we're also going to have 12 outreach locations. And those outreach locations will be open 2 days each during the period, and they will be located at senior centers and at 3 of the colleges and universities in town.
Yes, well, of course, even as we speak, that process is beginning.
Yes.
The early voting process. Now, with the outreach centers that are located at the county's multi-purpose senior centers, is that correct? And 3 universities.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we're in the multi-purpose centers. We're in a few of the neighborhood facilities.
Yes,
for
in
the
District
seniors.
6, I know you're at Palmetto.
Yes.
Yes.
And then we will be at Georgia State, Georgia Tech, and at Metropolitan State College.
There's a special situation involving these students, isn't it?
Yes, because students, they usually, or some of them, I guess, will vote. They're registered out of state or out of county. Sometimes there's also a voting precinct on campus, and they may be registered outside the precinct that's on the campus, but they want to vote on campus on election day. So what we were doing is having early voting there so that we can at least try to process the ones that live in Fulton. If we can't, we can at least educate them on absentee.
They'll know how.
Yeah.
They'll know how to vote.
Right.
Maybe get an absentee ballot from home.
Right. And it could be in Ohio, it could be in Wyoming, wherever they're from, and that's where they need to vote. And sometimes their residence is tied to their financial aid, so they have to vote where their parents reside.
Well, what has been our experience with early voting?
It is
Heavy, light, medium?
It is lighter than I would like. I'd like to see us get to at least 50% on election or during early voting. That way we probably have 200,000 people vote early. I mean, I'm expecting that we'll have somewhere in the neighborhood of 380,000, 390,000 voters this election.
It cuts that long line too, doesn't it?
Yes. We had 240,000 voters in the last gubernatorial election, and we had a record number this year in the presidential preference primary.
I think that this election is a little special too, isn't it? Because don't you generally have more voters for these presidential election years?
Yes, and I would say based on the voter registration application figures,
yes,
we have processed more this year than we did in 2012
and 2008,
and even more than 2008,
yes,
which seems to be a benchmark year for our county.
Well, I was looking at the materials that you gave the board, and you listed as your number one objective to empower voters.
Yes, and
so the more the better, as far as you're concerned.
If you have early voting all over the county and make it accessible, and you spread the same number in every one of the commissioner districts, then you hit all the demographics, all areas of the county. You give everyone equal opportunity to vote, and I think that's the most important thing for us to do.
And you also, in the process, comply with the law.
Yes.
we like that. We're going to take a break right now, and we're going to come back, and I want to talk about some of these special situations that we have in District 6.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment for part 2 of our conversation about the general election. Mr. Barron, we had mentioned briefly absentee voting. I want you to give us a little information on that, and I want everybody to know that we're going to give you the contact information so you can get even more. Will be on the screen at the end, but we just want to kind of hit some of these areas that have so much interest where we're receiving so many questions. With respect to absentee voting, however, I want to hit some of those major points. Of course, people have been sending in applications since the 20th of September, right?
Yeah, we started mailing out absentee ballots. We could start mailing them out on the 20th. We actually got them into the mail starting on the 22nd.
The 22nd, the ballots.
Yes.
Yes.
And voters have until November 8th to return those at 7 p.m. unless it's from overseas, and then they have until Friday the 10th at 5 o'clock to return them.
It's pretty important to remind everybody that that ballot has to be signed. Evidently, you've had some problems with that, right?
Yes, we need to have all the ballots signed. We need to have the signatures match what's on the voter registration application as well, so that we make sure that we are receiving a ballot from the individual that applied for it.
Mm-hmm. Of course, we're not being real technical about that, but it's kind of important to make sure whichever way you sign your name, be sure to sign that ballot the same way. All right, that's very important. We do have, as you perhaps know, some folks for each election they just prefer the absentee ballot. So
yes, and if anyone needs any information on absentee ballots, the status of their absentee ballot, they can call us.
That's very important information there. Yes. They can call you, and of course, we're going to have that number on the screen along with the other main contact number. I want to get back to where do I go to vote, and we want voters to understand that we have that information. You should know, should have already received all the information you need about where to vote on Election Day. With respect to early voting, though, where would you find information about early voting? Your precinct. I guess I'm talking about Election Day now because I want to know about the precincts.
Well,
early voting, you can vote anywhere.
You can vote anywhere during early voting. And recently, we sent out the head of household mailing that's
been mailed.
That's been mailed.
Everybody has theirs by now. This is the third week, so
they should have the early voting locations and their precinct on that. Both of them. They can also go to FultonElections.com to find their.
That's going to be on the screen.
Yeah, we have a poll locator on there for Election Day. We also have one for early voting. The early voting poll locator will also have the wait times at any of those locations.
Oh, that's very good.
We're going to update those hourly. We will do the same on Election Day as well. We'll have the wait times.
You have the
posted.
wait times when you go there to get your poll location.
Right.
Yes.
And because you can go to the Secretary of State's site to get information on our early voting and Election Day locations, and a lot of people do, but if you want the wait times, you should visit the Fulton County website and use our tools.
So that head of household mailing that you received will have your Election Day polling location.
Your precinct location where you need to vote on Election Day, and all of the early voting locations. You'll have to go to the for the outreach location times and hours, which are different than the permanent. You'll have to visit our website.
All right. Well, I think most commissioners are sending out those locations within their districts, but of course that website is good because it doesn't depend on the district.
Right.
And so that's very, very important. Now, with respect to these precinct cards that we had a little trouble with, we were kind of running behind the first week in October, and those coming from the Secretary of State's office. But of course, if everybody has their head of household mailing, they already have the information they need. But will they also receive that precinct card too?
Yeah, they should receive their precinct card.
So we'll have two pieces of mail. We'll have the precinct card as well as the head of household mail.
Yeah, and depending, if somebody registers to vote on October 11th, receiving the precinct card by Election Day is going to be a little tough. But
that's the point I wanted to make.
But that head of household mailing should go to every household that has a registered voter. So it's not going to be specifically addressed to a voter. Mm-hmm. It's going to be to that household.
To that household, to that address.
To that address.
Yes. So we all really should have that information.
Correct.
By the time this program airs. Now, we did have a special situation in District 6. The City Council of Atlanta and the mayor adopted ordinances that purported to annex certain areas of unincorporated Fulton, and the Board of Registration and you and your staff, you came to the board and asked us to make some boundary changes based on that action. And we were in the process of considering that early in October when, of course, the law changed. And so we want to have you to explain and give information to those affected areas with respect to the current status. And I think they know now, but I think it will be very, very helpful because actually you told us at the board meeting that there would be no changes because of certain changes and decisions by the courts relative to those annexations. Specifically, Superior Court set aside 5 of them. And so because of that, the boundary changes that the board requested that we make were canceled. Is that correct?
Yes, they were.
So there are no changes. Wherever you voted during the primary, that's where you would vote for general election. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, in those 5 areas, yes.
In those 5 areas.
Right.
All right, make that real clear.
Judge Dempsey made a decision. He moved those areas from the city of Atlanta back into the unincorporated South Fulton, and then issued a stay when the
Supreme Court issued the.
Yeah, they lifted lifted that, and so it's in the unincorporated South right now. Those 5 areas.
All right, I think that's very, very important for everybody to understand. However, they have their head of house, so I didn't know whether or not you would really have had time to make the change, but I guess you did.
We did have a chance to make that change, and hopefully no more courts will rule between now and Election Day, but of course we have no guarantees.
Yes, but certainly since we have already begun early voting, then of course there would be no changes since there was no change before then. All right, now we want to move on to some of the other kinds of points that you made to us about the registration and election process from the standpoint of the administration of the program. There have been some technology improvements that are going to make it much easier for citizens to have information regarding the outcomes of the vote.
Yeah,
and some other technological changes.
We're really excited about the election night return software. I think that it is going to.
We're all excited about that.
Make the end user is going to have access to much more information than before. Going to be able to pick favorites if they want to follow certain races more than others. Those will come up first. It'll fit on any mobile screen, whether you're on a phone, a tablet, or whether you have a laptop or
That's
even
fantastic.
a desktop. Yes.
Yeah.
And the graphics are nice. You can also get you can download information.
No hovering around a big screen somewhere anymore.
No, and one of the other things that's nice is if if only part of the results are in for a precinct, which would be early voting, the precincts will be
Yes.
shaded different colors.
Well, Mr. Barron, I received a signal here that my time has run out, and I knew that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen on this particular subject because there's so much to talk about. I would say to the viewers, however, that we're going to have contact information on the screen with respect to those situations that we talked about earlier, because we have plenty of contact information. I want to thank you, Mr. Barron, your staff, and Board of Registration and Elections. And I know you want me to include those hundreds of Fulton County employees that are working with you in departments. I know you mentioned those when you made your presentation to the board. I want to thank all of you all for everything that you're doing. And I do believe that it's a team effort. It's not just the Board of Registration and Elections out there. I think it's the entire Fulton County operation. Thank you all so much. And thank you to you and your staff for all that you're doing.
Thank you, and I appreciate the invitation for
Thanks
the show.
so very much. We appreciate your being here. We'll be back in a moment with my closing comments. We want to thank the Board of Registration and Elections not only for the hard work that they've done in preparing for the administration of the election, but for the objectives which they have had from the beginning, which is to empower voters, because it is because of that vision and that goal that we know that the presidential election of 2016 is going to be successful. We also want to express our deep appreciation to Ms. Fannie Lou Hamer, Ms. Viola Liuzzo, Michael Sferner, Goodman, Cheney, and all the others, known and unknown, living and dead, who have made this election day possible for all Americans. That's all the time we have for today's conversation. Until next time, stay strong and vote. To learn more about today's conversation, contact me at 404-612-8222. That's 404-612-8222. You can also email me at emma.darnell@fultoncountyga.gov. Visit us online at emmadarnell.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.